Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Why is that convenience store, gas station, or coffee shop located on that exact corner that it's on? It's strategic. And how does a deal like that really get negotiated? We're discussing this and more with an A&E television and streaming star today on Get Rich Education.
Since 2014, the powerful Get Rich Education podcast has created more passive income for people than nearly any other show in the world. This show teaches you how to earn strong returns from passive real estate investing in the best markets without losing your time being a flipper or landlord. Show host Keith Weinhold writes for both Forbes and Rich Dad Advisors and delivers a new show every week. Since 2014, there's been millions of listener downloads in 188 world nations. He has A-list show guests include top-selling personal finance author Robert Kiyosaki. Get Rich Education can be heard on every podcast platform, plus it has its own dedicated Apple and Android listener phone apps. Build wealth on the go with the Get Rich Education podcast. Sign up now for the Get Rich Education podcast or visit GetRichEducation.com.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Sudbury, Ontario to Sunbury, Pennsylvania, and across 188 nations worldwide. You're listening to one of America's longest running and most listened to real estate investing shows. This is Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. How did that ever happen? Here I am, more slack-jawed than a patient in a dentist's chair, but back with you for the 569th consecutive week anyway. This is the time of year where many people have just gone back to school. Here at GRE, you go forward to school as you learn about what's really going to make a difference and move the financial meter in your future. Now, the world's best-known negotiators include Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela. Today, the former FBI agent Chris Voss is perhaps the world's best-known negotiator. You'll recall that we've hosted Chris Voss on the show twice here and talked a good bit about real estate negotiation then. I mean, who can forget my mock negotiation with him over a fourplex building, which played out right here on air. It was obvious who won that debate. But Chris is an all-around negotiator, not specific to real estate. I thought, wouldn't it be great to get sort of a Chris Voss, but specific to real estate, here on the show for you? And that's what we're doing today. So you're really going to enjoy this week's guest. He's also the star of a real estate reality show on the A&E network that's going to make its big, flashy debut next month. Now, I had a small negotiation, I suppose, over email with one of my property managers in Florida recently. Yeah, I got an email from my manager saying that an air conditioning unit needed to be removed and replaced in one of my single-family rental properties there in Florida. Attached was a quote that they obtained from a company for $6,350, and there's conveniently a button for me to hit to approve this charge, but I did not hit the approve button. On that $6,350 price, I requested that they provide me with 2 more quotes. And yes, remember, you pay your property manager, often 8 to 10% of the monthly rent, in management fees. They are working for you. So what are they working on to earn that? Make them go to work and do this for you. All right, for substantial work items, it's a reasonable request for you to seek 3 quotes. And all right, while they were tracking down the 2 other quotes, I went to AI. I asked ChatGPT, what should the cost be to remove and replace an air conditioner in a 1,500 square foot home in Florida? ChatGPT answered $5,500 to $7,500 for a standard 3-ton system in a 1,500 square foot home. All right. So the first number the manager gave me, that was sort of right in the middle of that range. A few days later, the second quote came in at $6,150. All right, $200 less than the first one. I replied to them that if the third one doesn't come in substantially lower, that I am going to go seek quotes myself. A couple days later, the third and final quote came in, and it was $49.90. Yes. So I accepted it. This is about $1,300 less than the first quote that they gave me, just for returning a few emails. And it will make the tenant happy to have a new air conditioning system. Newer systems tend to be more efficient, so it's probably going to make the tenant's electricity bill lower as well. And it probably makes it easier for me to justify future rent increases too. That tenant's been there for quite a few years. I'm thinking 6 years. And today's low home buyer affordability is probably going to keep them renting for a while. And the other thing that could keep them there longer is a new air conditioning system. And that is the biggest rental property expense, or the most I even had to get involved in quite a while. Because remember, at GRE Marketplace, almost every property there is either brand new or completely renovated. Your CapEx expenses should be small for years. Let's meet this week's featured guest. Have you ever wondered why that coffee shop is on that corner that they're on? Or why your grocery store is located just where it is? And how do those deals get negotiated? That's what you'll see on an upcoming new series on A&E. It starts October 12th. It's called The Real Estate Commission. There are no scripts. The show captures real-life deals as they unfold, as they crumble and fall apart, and maybe come back together again. The star of that show is with us today. He believes, he will tell you, that he's the most prolific commercial real estate broker in the nation, and he has the experience and the gravitas to back that up because he brings over 2 decades as a broker, and he's the managing director at Titan Commercial Realty Group in New York. He's closed more than 1,700 deals. Yes, 1,700 deals totaling over $2 billion across the commercial real estate sectors. He's represented everyone from local startups to national REITs. Hey, welcome to Get Rich Education, Todd Drowlette.
Thank you. And that was quite the introduction. I don't think I could top that myself.
You've got a full interview's worth of time here to live up to that, Todd. More than 10 years ago, I started living this life where it seems like everything that I say gets recorded and uploaded to the internet. And now you've gone down that same road. Similar to that, tell us about your forthcoming reality TV and streaming show that starts next month. What can viewers really expect to see?
There's over 100 shows on national TV about flipping houses, renovating houses, residential brokers. Ours is the first show ever on television to feature commercial real estate and to be entirely about commercial real estate. So it's a docu-series. There's 8 episodes in the season. It follows my team at Titan and I doing actual real deals, from helping a divorce attorney search for new office space to investors to selling multifamily properties. So viewers will be able to kind of see behind the scenes and see actual documented deals as they happen, fall apart, come back together again. I'm hoping that viewers will take away the fact that, yes, you have to be sophisticated and understand what's going on, but it's something that the average person can be involved in. Commercial real estate is a $1 trillion industry hiding in plain sight. People go to the grocery store, like you said, they go to the coffee shop, they go to the gas station, they go to their office building. People use and interact with commercial real estate every single day. It's just like the air. You're not consciously thinking about it, even though you're using it almost every moment of the day.
Right. It's something that we all need and interact with. It's almost non-discretionary, whether we're buying something at a retail store or filling up at a gas station. Yeah, I think to some people, commercial real estate sounds unapproachable. And as you watch this series, you're thinking, oh, that's the life that somebody else lives. It's really not that unapproachable. Does the series really help break that down?
It does, and we made a very conscious decision. So I represent some very large corporations, but the series follows like smaller business and entrepreneurs and seeing kind of people from the beginning or in different transitions of their business. Like, I'm growing, but you're seeing in real life actual successful business people you're seeing them react to real situations and that kind of moment where they're like, man, I think I'm ready to grow and expand, but what if I'm wrong? What if the economy turns? Am I doing the right thing? And you're kind of watching us guide them through that process. But you see, so much of the internet is perception and people going, oh, look at this, look how successful I am. This, you're seeing successful people and knowing that there's no guarantee in life. Like the best you're ever going to make is a calculated decision, but there's no point in your life where you're so successful that it just doesn't matter if you lose. Like the deals get larger and the stakes get higher, and every decision you make is potentially a pitfall. So you're going to see real entrepreneurs and real business executives dealing with those decisions of when do I move? Do I invest? Do I buy? I have this property, I need to get rid of it. And what's that process look like? I love commercial real estate. I can go on and on about it. What I'll be really excited to see is if the everyday person finds commercial real estate interesting.
Doers don't wait for uncertainty to abate, or else they would never get anything done. Doers educate themselves and make strategic moves despite the uncertainty. And Todd, shortly, I do want to ask you more about negotiation and just how that coffee shop gets that prime corner spot, if you will. But first, dropping back a bit more introspective, I know that some have called this the series that launched 5 new real estate careers already. So how transformative is this personally for you to do this show? Besides making mom proud, it probably changes how others think of you and how you think of yourself.
Well, my mom thought I was nuts to want national television, but she's proud, but thinks I'm crazy, and she's probably not wrong. How this whole thing came about was we had a show also called The Real Estate Commission that was on Facebook Watch that we averaged about 1.3 million views per episode. The premise of that show that was also called The Real Estate Commission was, can 4 successful real estate brokers take just anyone off the street and turn them into the next $100 million real estate agent? It was 2 commercial brokers, 2 residential brokers. When COVID happened, I said to Brandon in my office, who's part of the cast of this show on A&E, I was, looking back, now we know how COVID played out. But at the time, it was like they made the announcement, I'm somebody who works 80 hours a week. And I'm looking at potentially, could we be a year with not working and doing nothing? So I'm like, we really need to do something to market. I go, why don't we do a reality show about real estate? And he's like, what in the hell do you know about producing a TV show? I go, well, nothing, but the whole world stopped. There's got to be people, we must know people in TV who might be sitting at home and might be willing to help produce this show. And he started laughing. He goes, well, actually, one of my college roommates is high up at Viacom. So we called him and we put together a whole production team of 50 people in the middle of COVID, put out a casting call and filmed the show, and it did really well. And then we kind of went around to the networks and made a deal with A&E. But with A&E, I really wanted to show off commercial real estate and kind of show it to the average person and show them, hey, here's this thing that people can participate and be a part of. And it's a super interesting industry because like when I was 22, I was the youngest exclusive Starbucks broker in the country. So how you said that coffee shop that ends up in the corner, I was the guy that, Starbucks would run their software and say, you run traffic counts that are available on, state DOT websites. People don't realize when you're driving down the road and you see the rubber thing goes da-dum, da-dum, that's actually either a traffic engineer or the state, and they're seeing how many cars a day, but they're also tracking to the hour on which side of the road. So like, why is McDonald's on the PM side of the road? Or why is Starbucks or Dunkin' or 7 Brew Coffee, why are they on the AM side of the road? Because they know, looking at the traffic patterns, who's going where. So when we would negotiate a deal like that, they would say, hey, here's the target markets we want to be in. I was the boots on the ground, so to speak, that says, okay, let me look up the tax records and let me look up the tax maps. I know they need 3/4 of an acre to an acre to fit on. They want to be a traffic light. We need this many cars per day. Hey, it's great if we're across the street from a university or a hospital or a major office park or a grocery anchored shopping center. Can we get out in the out parcel? There's a deal structure to it, and then you negotiate the rent and how much tenant improvement dollars or what contributions the landlord is going to make to the deal. And that's kind of how we identify, locations and negotiate. And as a broker, I get paid a percentage of that overall lease value or a sales transaction.
Well, talking about making decisions in the face of uncertainty, I mean, there it is, case in point. You put together the architecture of a show like this during the pandemic, during the height of uncertainty. That was a really interesting thing that you said when you talk about how, for example, you probably do want to have a coffee shop located, I would imagine, when you're inbound on the right side of the road there, sort of for AM traffic.
100%. It's the same reason like restaurants that are more dinner-based businesses, brunch businesses will be on the PM side, the afternoon drive home. Or liquor stores typically like to be on the PM side of the road because as people are going home, they pop in and just continue on their way home.
Right. That makes total sense to me. Todd, you do have this great command of real world negotiation tactics, helping to be sure that those prime locations, sort of like we just described, play out and happen from this $2 billion in closed deals, which is a remarkable figure. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with who you work with, who you're negotiating with. Trump was negotiating Manhattan real estate deals, and now that's pretty different as he's trying to broker a ceasefire agreement among foreign nations. So you've got all these stories from working with small business owners to multinational brands. So can you tell us about how who you work with changes your approach?
You have to always know what your goal is. And the more research you know about who you're negotiating with and the more you understand them, the better you're going to do, right? Sometimes winning in negotiations is about winning. Sometimes winning in negotiations is just about not losing. So sometimes I have clients that say, get me that particular piece of real estate. I don't care what it costs me. Just get it under any circumstances. I don't care. I have other clients, like I represent a clothing chain that's like similar to a TJ Maxx or Marshalls. They've been around 40 years, called Label Shopper. They're in secondary and tertiary markets all over the country. They are very inexpensive and they pay very low rent and they're opportunistic. So the approach for every single deal is completely different on depending what the person's trying to do. But the tactic's always the same. I always try to, as a broker, you're in the middle. So I'm always trying to figure out what are the actual deal breakers and what's motivating this side versus that side. And then you meet somewhere in the middle. And I try to do deals where nobody feels like you bent them over a barrel, and they have a vendetta for 20 years because it's a very small world and a very long life. So if you really stick it to somebody to the point where they hate you over it, you don't know what's that deal next week or 20 years from now that you really need, and find out that person is the kid of the person you really stuck it to. And now all of a sudden that deal you need comes back to haunt you from the deal that you won 20 years ago. So I try to let people keep their pride intact. And there's a lot of for just general negotiations, a lot of people negotiate against themselves without even realizing it. So most people fear silence. And I always say, whoever talks first loses. So if I throw out a number, like if you were selling me something and I said, I think my top number is $100,000, I will not speak until the other person speaks, because most people are afraid of silence. And if I throw that number out, I'm going to go, oh my God, he's not responding. That number is too low. And I'm instantly going to go, well, maybe I could pay 120 or maybe I could pay 150. I've seen people do it a million times. So when I'm negotiating against people, whatever they say to me, I never respond until they talk a second time, because I want to see how much line there is in that run before it gets to the end. And whatever number they stop at, that's where the negotiation starts. And so many people do that. They just negotiate against themselves unintentionally.
Get comfortable with silence. Oh, you just brought up so many good points there, Todd. Such an important one in negotiating, you sort of touched on it, is that successful negotiation is finding out what the other side wants. I might be willing to pay you full price if you give me my timeline. Say you get me to the closing table in 30 days rather than 90. So terms often mean more than price. So can you speak more about how to find out what the other side wants and making sure they actually get it while still getting what you need?
It depends on the person. I mean, generally, as crazy and dumb of an answer as it sounds is, I just ask. Anyone who's with me knows I'm a very direct person. If I won't ask you on Monday morning, how was your weekend, if I don't sincerely care how your weekend was. I'm very much a get to the point type of guy. And I find in negotiating, unless I know the person in advance or I've done research that there's somebody who likes to circle the wagons and go around, I'm kind of a very direct, right to the point kind of person. So I'll say, listen, here's things that are important to my client. What's important to you? and let me see if we can work something out that either we both can mutually agree upon and feel good about, or if we can't get a deal done, I always say I'll take a quick no over a long maybe any day. I find most people will tell you, like, it kind of throws people off because most people are slick and sly and they kind of like circle the wagons. I think people, if they like my personality, they'll find it refreshing because whatever I say or mean is what I say or mean. I'm not hiding anything. So when I say, listen, I have a client, this is what they want, can we get this done? You'd be amazed when you're candid with people how directly candid most people are, because it kind of throws them off and they don't really have any choice but to be honest.
Yeah, how weird. This guy actually says what he means and means what he says. A lot of people really aren't used to that type of approach. You're listening to Get Rich Education. We're talking with the star of the upcoming A&E show, the Real Estate Commission, Todd Drowlette. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. The same place where I get my own mortgage loans is where you can get yours, Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided our listeners with more loans than anyone because they specialize in income properties. They help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. Start your pre-qual and even chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. While it's on your mind, start at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com. You know what's crazy? Your bank is getting rich off of you. The average savings account pays less than 1%. It's like laughable. Meanwhile, if your money isn't making at least 4%, you're losing to inflation. That's why I started putting my own money into the FFI Liquidity Fund. It's super simple. Your cash can pull in up to 8% returns and it compounds. It's not some high-risk gamble like digital or AI stock trading. It's pretty low risk because they've got a 10-plus year track record of paying investors on time, in full, every time. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't invested myself. You can invest as little as $25K and you keep earning until you decide you want your money back. No weird lockups or anything like that. So if you're like me and tired of your liquid funds just sitting there doing nothing, check it out. Text FAMILY to 66866 to learn about Freedom Family Investments Liquidity Fund. Again, text FAMILY to 66866.
Hey everybody, it's Robert Helms of the Real Estate Guys radio program. So glad you found Keith Weinhold and Get Rich Education. Don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. We're talking with the star of the upcoming A&E show, Todd Drowlette. He's not shy. He will also tell you that he is the most prolific commercial real estate broker in the entire nation, and it's great to have him here. Todd, I know that through all your dealings, again, 1,700 deals, it's put you in between a lot of interesting situations, and it sure isn't always about the numbers. Sometimes it's about the story.
A very interesting story. So I mentioned earlier that I have a client called Label Shopper that's an off-price clothing chain. I was doing a deal in Oxford, Maine, which is a very small town in, central Maine. And I called up, this is a time when Fashion Bug had gone out of business and we were taking over closed Fashion Bugs. And they said, you got to talk to Bob. I didn't know who Bob was. Bob gets on the phone. He was the biggest stone buster you could ever imagine. I'm negotiating the deal with him, talking to him, and I realized the guy kind of just wanted to fight, and he had multiple shopping centers that he wanted us to look at. And I'm like, Bob, I don't have enough time to get up there. And he's like, oh, no, I'll send my helicopter down to Millionaire in Albany, New York, and I'll pick you guys up. I'll show you my 3 shopping centers. I'll have you back in the early afternoon. And the same guy, while he said that, was literally arguing over a difference of $5,000 on my commission that I wanted for the deals. And I'm like, Bob. So I Googled the guy and then I realized he was a billionaire and he had founded the NASCAR track in Loudon, New Hampshire. I said to him, I'm going to say something to him and I'm not going to speak until he speaks. And I literally go, Bob, give me the difference of the $5,000 on the fees. I go, stick your helicopter. I go, and I'll drive up. And I literally stared at the clock on my wall for 33 seconds. And then finally he's like, well, all right, I'll give you the money, but if you don't like that, you can go to plum hell. And I started laughing. And I said, okay. I go, I'll call you on Monday. So I call him up on Monday. I go, okay, Bob, we're going to take the deal. We'll drive up. And he's like, no, you SOB. He's like, I'm sending the helicopter anyway. It's going to pick you up tomorrow at 9 a.m. We end up flying up to his huge estate in Lake Winnipesaukee. We land in this, looks like Beverly Hills manicured garden. This guy walks up to me with his son, gets in the helicopter. He looks at my client, Peter, and I, and goes, which one of you two is Jesse? I go, Jesse? I'm like, I'm Todd and he's Peter. He goes, no, Jesse James robbing me blind on the commission. We burst out laughing, and then we were friends ever since. Unfortunately, he died recently, but he was like the most fascinating, coolest guy. I met him, he was in his mid-70s. He went into his 80s, but he was literally a self-made guy that, grew up in Connecticut on a tobacco farm. Parents had no money, never went to college, and just the most fascinating guy. He could decide on a deal on the back of a napkin with a pencil he always kept in his pocket. So you never know in the world, who you meet and who you're going to become friends with. And that's just 20 stories of really fascinating, interesting people I met in very unlikely places.
Amazing. You just don't know everyone's story when you first meet them. 100%. Todd, a lot of your experience has given you insight on how to help develop some of the best real estate technology in order to make deals more efficient. For example, I know you developed a software platform that's soon launching that competes with CoStar and LoopNet. So tell us more about what you're doing in the real estate technology space and about trends there.
So we have a software that's the same name as the show, the realestatecommission.com. It's kind of a category killer. So for a very low monthly price, people can post properties, they can search commercial properties. There's blogs so you can follow up and learn, about commercial real estate. You can find traffic counts that we referenced earlier. You can run demographic reports and say, hey, in this particular block or from this street over to this river or in 1 mile or 3 miles or 5 miles, how much money does the average person have? What are median incomes? What race are they? What's their education levels? That's all information that exists in the public domain, but software companies charge a fortune for it, even though it's public information, just to aggregate it. We put all the information, and we want the information to be inexpensive and available to the average user. The other interesting thing about what's happening right now is the larger companies are kind of asleep at the wheel, where you can buy your way to the front of search results in Google and Bing. The amount of daily searches that are going to platforms like ChatGPT and other AI search engines is astronomical, and you can't buy your way to the front of those search engines right now. So if you're up on your SEO, search engine optimization game, it's like resetting the clock 20 years that you have another chance to bite at the apple to get customers and clients potentially directly in front of you to your platforms. So it's a really exciting time in software right now.
That's interesting how consumers have shifted away from Google and some of the more conventional search engines where deep-pocketed people and companies can buy their way to the top. So tell us more about really the opportunity there, because that's really interesting.
So essentially, if you understand, search engine optimization, SEO, if people don't know what that is, that's essentially you can do things to optimize your apps or your websites that allows people, it's how the internet finds you, so to speak. So there's basically ways that you can put in code that aren't complicated things, but you can also specifically submit those things directly to ChatGPT and the other platforms. And then they go through and they index your site. And again, they're looking at it going, well, what's the most relevant? So if you look at how people are searching and what the terms are, you can figure out those terms, and then you can make sure you come up at the top of those search results. And like I said, a lot of the bigger companies in different industries, from residential real estate to commercial real other things, those people rely heavily on just buying their way to the top of search results. And you can't do that right now. And I don't remember, the last stat I saw was about 30 days ago, and it was something insane, like 180 million searches a day are being done on just ChatGPT. So that is a huge market that people can get their way to the top of, where you're not competing directly with the big boys, so to speak.
Yeah, this is a way for you to get found for sure. Todd, dealing with commercial real estate, we know that entire industry has been subject to these interest rate resets, where in the residential 1 to 4 fixed mortgage rate world, we really haven't been. So I'd love to know from your perspective, and being this broker that does all this negotiating, from your unique vantage point, how have higher interest rates changed things?
I'm often told to never make predictions because you can be wrong. I'm somebody who's made calculated risks my entire life, and I'm not afraid of being wrong. The commercial real estate industry, I think, is about to have a coming to God moment that I think we're 3 to 9 months away from. And the reason for that is, unlike residential loans that are 20 or 30-year or 15-year mortgages that are self-amortizing, commercial loans typically have a 20 or 25-year amortization, but only a 5-year term, or
Right.
sometimes you're lucky a 10-year term. And what happened was when COVID drove interest rates down, I have some clients that had interest rates that were 2.5, 2.8%. And the problem with that is interest rates are now over 6. So we're coming up on that 5-year period where you could have the same tenants, the same income, the same taxes, same expenses. If you have to refinance in the next 3 to 6 months and those rates don't drop by at least a point, there's going to be blood in the streets like you've never seen. It's going to make the financial meltdown in 2008, 2009 look like a walk in the park because you have so many loans. That's why Donald Trump, even though he's the president, that guy was, and will always be a real estate guy. He isn't saying why he's doing it, but the reason he's pushing for the Fed so much to drop the rate is because commercial real estate is going to get murdered if the rates don't drop by at least 3/4 of a point to a point in the next 3 to 6 months. That's why you're seeing the heavy pressure from Donald Trump to the Fed, because there's a lot of commercial real estate guys that have been playing musical chairs, and there's one chair for every 10 people when the music stops. So anyone listening who's only been in 1 to 4 in that unit, if you're sitting on cash, you're going to have the opportunity to buy small strip centers, small office buildings, smaller properties where you can get your feet wet, where banks are going to be giving these things back, just trying to get out from underneath them. I'm willing to be wrong. I can be the guy who said it. If something drastically doesn't change in the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to have major defaults. Another thing nobody's talking about is for the last year, home loans and credit card default rates have been sky high through the roof, which means the economy is strong as people are acting like the economy is. It's kind of like the emperor's new clothes or new robe. The economy is walking stark naked down the street and everybody's pretending that it's wearing, fine linens. And I think the rubber is about to hit the road if interest rates don't drop very quickly.
Tell us how bad you think it will get. For example, nationally, we've seen apartment building values fall 25 to 30% or more, and some, certainly not all, but some office buildings fall in value 80%. Tell us more. How bad will it get? Who will it be worst for?
So the problem with a lot of commercial loans, the banks are lending money to borrowers based on the credit of the leases of the tenants. Like when you own a residential portfolio, they're looking at your credit score, your assets and liabilities and deciding, okay, we're lending you the money and we have recourse. We're going to come after you if this doesn't work out. There are a ton in commercial real estate of non-recourse loans, meaning the only thing I'm risking as the owner is this property and my down payment. If this goes bad, here, bank, here's the keys back. You can't come after me personally. You can't affect my credit score. This is non-recourse. So as those large office tenants go bad or the economy goes bad and all of a sudden the credit ratings of those things drop, you're going to have banks left holding the bag to the tune of hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion. It's going to be bad.
And who knows if the banks will get bailed out. I don't really know if that's the right formula, if that's the right example to set there where we publicize losses and privatize gains.
I mean, they might argue it worked in 2008, 2009, but even if that's the case, you still have a lot of people. Commercial real estate is driven by ego. So before the actual foreclosures that can take 1 to 2 to 3 years to finalize out with the court systems, you still will have people doing short sales. So there will be a big opportunity for people to make a leap into commercial real estate. And guys ahead of me that, taught me the business always said, you make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell. Anytime you can buy $1 for 50 cents, you buy that dollar. So if the market drops and that's a great location of a great property that has a good roof, has good mechanicals, is in a great location, if that thing was trading for $4 million and you can buy it for $1.5 million today, that's when you buy and then you ride it back up. And there's guys like me, I negotiate and broker for a living. So I have an advantage that I can go out and get the tenants and find the tenants. But there's guys that do what I do and women that do what I do all over the country. So people should start aligning themselves with local commercial real estate experts. And maybe it's the time that they can say, you know what, maybe I'll buy a 10,000 square foot office building and give it a try. Maybe I'll buy a 2 or 3 unit strip center that has a nail salon or a beauty salon or things in it that Amazon isn't going to come along and knock out of business.
What sectors are going to have the best opportunities?
I'm heavy on office. So I'm a big proponent of reading books that are out of copyright. So I love reading books that were written interviewing the robber barons, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, but were written at the time they were still alive. And there's one thing when you go back to like the Panic of 1893 or 2001, you can go back and look at all these things that happened, and things are based on cycles. And one thing I can tell you with absolute certainty is the people who don't panic in times of panic, when everything drops and falls apart, they're the people that in the shortest window in a 2 to 3 year recovery period, where that dollar dropped to 50 cents and it's just coming back to $1, but they bought it at 50 cents. They're the guys in like every 10 or 15 or 20 years that ride a 2 or 3 year upscale when everybody else is panicking. That's when they buy the stocks. That's when they buy the real estate when it's low. And then they ride it back just to normal. It doesn't have to get better. It just has to go back to sea level. And I think that's about to happen in commercial real estate. And I think office is a great market because it's been getting murdered in the headlines since COVID. But in any headline, there's always an opportunity because that scares a ton of people out and people will fire sale stuff because they think it's bad. And there isn't bad real estate, there's bad deals. And if you overpay for something, they're the people who get hurt. If you underpay and buy something at a value, you can make deals other people can't, and you don't take the hits the way other people take the hits. People need to be conservative. So many real estate people are like, oh, put as little cash into the deal, borrow as much as you can, highly leverage deals. And that's fine when it works. But when it doesn't work, you have people who could have a $50 million net worth that become broke overnight because they never took the money off the table. To me, keep some of that money in, pay down your debt, and just increase your cash flow and work off the cash flow. That's always been my strategy. I have friends who make a fortune and they live that high life. I like calculated risks. And to me, I never want the bank to be my boss. I like being the boss's bank. And if you owe them too much money, and especially if people cross-collateralize loans and say, this is a great property, but let me borrow against it to buy this property and this property, that can be the domino effect. When it goes badly, all of a sudden now you put all your assets at risk. I always strongly encourage people to not do that and to keep their loans and to keep their assets separate.
Yeah, loan terms can certainly be more precarious on the commercial side than the residential side, much of it due to fixed versus variable. History doesn't repeat, it often rhymes, and sometimes in some sectors, you want to be that buyer when the reaction to you buying is like, are you nuts? What are you doing? Maybe office is at that point. Todd, this has been a great chat about negotiation and industry trends and more. Again, The Real Estate Commission, the show on A&E, debuts October 12th. Todd, do you have any last thoughts or maybe a call to action for our audience if they want to learn more about what you're up to?
Yep, if they want to visit therealestatecommission.com, my Instagram handle is @BetterTalkToTodd and @TheRealEstateCommission. And the show begins airing on October 12th. On A&E, next day streaming. And I think people, if they have interest in real estate, will find this show fascinating. If not, at me at Better Talk to Todd and tell me what you think of the show.
Todd, it's been an engaging chat. Good luck on the TV show. It's been great having you here.
I would love to come back anytime. And thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate your time and I love the podcast.
Yeah, and I appreciate that Todd is a GRE fan. It's always great to have celebrity listeners like him, but to me, it's just as special to have you as a listener. What a wide-ranging conversation between Todd Drowlette and I today. It just shows the breadth of his knowledge. And Drowlette is spelled Drowlette. You know, these prominent negotiators, including when we had Chris Boss here, they don't have this disposition of some vicious pit bull. Instead, they come off as reasonable. It doesn't feel hard-nosed, like using well-placed silence that Todd talked about today. He's a pragmatist, and he even comes off as likable. See if you can feel that, and video helps here. The video of our chat today might be on our Get Rich Education YouTube channel by now. When you drive around, have you wondered about that before? That was super interesting about how coffee shops are on the AM side of the road, meaning as you're inbound toward a city center, they'd be on the right side, a liquor store on the PM side. You've got to think about how humans interact with real estate. For example, a car wash, that's best placed on the PM side of the road. I mean, most commuters, they don't leave extra time during their morning commute to get their car washed. They don't want to feel rushed. People are more likely to wash their car after work, so it'll be on the right side outbound, which is the PM side. And let's keep in mind, too, that the U.S. and Canada, for better or worse, have car-centric cultures, so these things matter here more than they would in, say, the Netherlands. The location of commercial real estate, it comes down to tax maps and traffic counts and income levels in this AM/PM side, and some want to be at a traffic light. You're going to get more traffic if it's already stopped or slowed down. Is it across from a university or a hospital or a grocery anchor shopping center? That makes it more desirable for a location. So really some interesting demographic and economic considerations there. Todd likes office real estate, as return-to-office policies help somewhat with absorption there. It is not accurate to say that office real estate is dead. Perhaps permanently contracted is more like it. Yes, the scenes from another popular show, The Office, with Dunder Mifflin in Scranton, Pennsylvania, those scenes are diminished, but they are going to live on. Speaking of popular shows, check out our friend Todd Drowlette in The Real Estate Commission starting October 12th on A&E. Besides being entertained, it might make a daunting topic like commercial real estate feel somewhat more approachable for you. Big thanks to Todd Drowlette. As far as listening to Get Rich Education every week, what you've got to do on most platforms to ensure that you don't miss it is be sure to find the follow button. Hitting follow will get it delivered. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
Whenever you want the best written real estate and finance info, oh, geez. Today's Experience limits your free articles access, and it's got paywalls and pop-ups and push notifications and cookies disclaimers. It's not so great. So then it's vital to place nice, clean, free content into your hands that adds no hype value to your life. That's why this is the golden age of quality newsletters, and I write every word of ours myself. It's got a dash of humor, and it's to the point because even the word abbreviation is too long. My letter usually takes less than 3 minutes to read, and when you start the letter, you also get my 1-hour fast real estate video course. It's all completely free. It's called the Don't Quit Your Daydream letter. It wires your mind for wealth, and it couldn't be easier for you to get it right now. Just text GRE to 66866. While it's on your mind, take a moment to do it right now. Text GRE to 66866. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.